We're here at the Ham Yard Hotel for the FWA Live charity event for the Grenfell Tower victims. It's my great honour and absolute pleasure to welcome Gary Lineker to the channel. It's unbelievable. I can't believe I'm saying this.
Oh, it's very nice of you.
Quick prediction for Spurs next season. Obviously, they haven't signed anyone. All the other clubs are strengthened. Do you see that as a lack of ambition by Tottenham, or do you think the continuity will help them in the long run?
Well, there's two ways of looking at it. I do think Tottenham need to strengthen their squad, not necessarily their first team, but especially considering the fact there's European football as well. So I think 2 or 3 additions would be welcome, and I think they'll come as well. But not necessarily first team positions, more cover perhaps for Harry Kane, perhaps a place in midfield, perhaps one at the back. But I think the key for Tottenham is that predominantly they've kept the side together. Certainly the key players. Yes, they've lost Walker, but they've got Trippier, and it's not a big loss. A lot of money for a player that's not a spring chicken. So I think overall it's more important that they keep what they've got than they bring in necessarily someone else. How well Tottenham will do will be largely dependent on how they adapt to Wembley. I think we all know that. But I think Tottenham have, sometimes your advantages are your disadvantages, and sometimes your disadvantages are your advantages. The fact that they've not brought in new players doesn't necessarily mean that they won't do as well. Because what they have got is a solid starting lineup. That Pochettino knows his best team. He knows the systems that it can play. He hasn't got this thing of 3 or 4 new players coming in. Which ones do I put in? Which ones will adapt quickly? That the other clubs have. So it could be a big advantage for Tottenham going in there with the stability that they have. And if they get off to a decent start at Wembley, when they can get a bit of confidence in that ground where they've not done very well recently, that could bode well. But I think a lot is dependent on how they start. They're opening 2 or 3 home matches at Wembley because they did so well at White Hart Lane last season. I would be tipping Tottenham for the league if they were playing at White Hart Lane this season, but they're not, so it's really dependent on how they do.
You're very active on Twitter. You did a now famous tweet talking about Kyle Walker. You said, wow, what an amazing deal, Kyle Walker, 50 million. How much would he cost if he could actually cross a ball? Do you think Spurs got the best out of that deal with Trippier coming in? How do you think that will affect the side?
Well, it's difficult to say. I mean, obviously there was a degree of jest in that particular tweet, and I'm a big admirer of Kyle Walker. He's got phenomenal pace. He gets up and down the pitch. But his final ball is not always his greatest strength. Whereas Trippier's final ball is normally very accurate, but he probably he hasn't got that up and down phenomenal pace that Kyle Walker's got. So it's a position where they were well covered. They do get a few quid in. I don't think they would want to have lost him. And nowadays, 50 million and stuff, it's just like paper, isn't it? It doesn't even seem to count for anything. It's remarkable the way the game has evolved. But he was a player that Manchester City kind of needed. They needed someone in that position. But you never really want to improve your opponents, though, do you? Your rivals. So it's only time will tell whether it's a good move for Tottenham or a bad move for Tottenham or a good move for Man City or not.
Obviously, as a striker yourself, as an absolute Spurs legend, you know a lot about putting the ball in the back of the net. What do you say? Why do you think Harry Kane has come along so long? What do you think makes him so special and scored so many goals? Well,
an all-round ability, a massive amount of drive, great deal of mental strength, and he's not scared of it. He's got a really good all-round game. He's got every facet that you would want, with probably the exception of blistering pace. It reminds me a lot of Alan Shearer in many ways. He wants to take every free kick. He wants to take the penalties. He's good in the air. He can score goals from outside or inside the box. So he's got. He's got so much talent, but above all, his mental strength is the difference, I think.
Okay. And last question, quickly. Finish this sentence. If Tottenham win the league, I will
celebrate madly. How about that?
Underpants this time.
I think I've learnt my lesson.
Thank you. It's been such a pleasure having you on the channel, Gary Lineker. Thank you very much for coming on.
Pleasure. Pleasure.